Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is your host, Dr. Joe Salustio. I've been here many times before. You've probably heard my voice. And keep listening, thank you. And maybe many of you have gotten annoyed with my voice and turned off. I would say thank you, but you're not listening anyway, so I don't have to say thank you. But if you are still listening, we appreciate it. And as you know, the EdUp Experience recently passed 400,000 downloads. We did that in December of 2024. Of about 1,000 episodes we've recorded, 400,000 times those episodes have been listened to. And one of the things we like to talk about, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, Elvin Freitas, and I, is that we have never paid for listenership. A lot of people don't know this, but if you run a podcast, much like if you want to grow your Instagram account, there are companies out there that you can pay, and they'll go out and get a bunch of people to listen in organic growth. And then you get to say, hey, we had a bunch of people listen to our podcast. We've never done that. In fact, in the early days, nobody listened to our podcast. I was literally begging my family to go, just getting to listen to this. And they would go, we don't really want to listen to higher ed stuff. Only higher ed people want to listen to that stuff. And I said, okay, we got to do better with reaching out to our audiences. So what we've done is we brought in great partners. We've got great companies that we work with that do great work for higher education, and they provide us with co-hosts. And I have a first-time guest co-host with me, and we're going to ask our guest at the end to judge how he did. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring him in right now. He's Dylan Fogarty. He is a vice president at Rise Education. Dylan, welcome to an EdUp Mic. How are you?
I'm good, Joe. Thank you so much for having me today. As you mentioned, I'm excited to kick off my career as a podcast co-host. So let's see how I do. Very excited to dive into today's conversation. But first, before we get going, big kudos to you for reaching 4,000 downloads. That's an incredible achievement.
400,000, not to correct.
400,000. Mistake one.
Yeah.
Now let's get to that 500,000 mark.
We're working on it. And see, here's the secret to that. You got to bring on great guests who want to tell good stories about the work that we're doing in higher education, because if we don't tell those stories, the public will somehow continue to distort the value of higher education and tell a different story. So we've got to get those voices on here, and we've got a very great voice and great leader with us today. Let's bring in right now. She's Dr. Susan Rundell Singer. She's president at St. Olaf College. Susan, welcome to an EdUp Mic. How are you?
Hi, Joe. It's great to be with you and Dylan, and welcome to your first podcast, Dylan.
Thank you.
Did you know that you were going to be the judge of Dylan's performance today, Susan? So, I mean, get ready.
Big responsibility.
That's a fact.
Well, we want to learn a little bit about St. Olaf College first. Where are you? What do you do? And who do you serve? At Lutheran Live 2025, we're going to explore the magic of innovation. We want to imagine, believe, and achieve. It's happening April 6th through 9th, 2025 in Orlando, Florida, and we're going to explore technology, modernization, and
artificial intelligence.
Explore the latest technology solutions, discover industry insights, and make valuable connections as a global community. It's time to register for Lutheran Live 2025 at elive.lutheran.com.
We're excited to announce the first of its kind higher education podcast conference, brought to you by Edu Alliance, the EdUp Experience, and Podium. This is happening Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus. This is an in-person event, one day only, the first of its kind. This is for people working in and around higher education who are interested in starting a podcast, who may have a podcast, want to learn more about podcasting. So if you want to be there, please go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn how you can get your early bird registration, see who the keynote will be, and how you can submit proposals to be a part of this amazing inaugural conference. So that, again, go to higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's edupexperience.com and become a subscriber today.
Terrific. Thanks for that opportunity. St. Olaf College is located in Northfield, Minnesota. We're about halfway between Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the Mayo Clinic down in Rochester, to give you some sense of where we are. We provide a truly holistic education for about 3,000 undergraduate students. We have over 85 undergraduate majors, concentrations, pre-professional tracks, really holistically helping students prepare for life, living up what it means for higher ed to be a mechanism for providing for the public good. And some of the, I think, really compelling parts about being part of St. Olaf is that we are amongst a relatively small sector of higher ed that meets the demonstrated financial need of our student body. And about 99% of our students receive some form of financial aid. So we're really committed to being a place where talented students have access to a high quality learning experience. And we're quite excited. This year is our 150th birthday. Happy birthday, St. Olaf College.
Amazing.
We have, in our mission, we challenge our students to excel in the liberal arts, examine and explore meaningful vocation. We can talk more about what vocation means in our context, and to be globally engaged community members. And the foundation of all of that is we are informed by the Lutheran tradition. We're nourished by the Lutheran tradition.
Well, thank you for that setup. And, one of the things that you said right away that was really interesting to me is you mentioned holistic education. And I start to go, I think I know what that is. And then vocational education, which is a little bit different. And then vocational education in your context, which maybe is even a little bit different. Give us the spectrum and how you think about these, I don't know what they are, educational outcome or pathway ideas, and why those distinctions exist and how you think to approach those.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are the attributes of a St. Olaf education. We are a truly residential community. About 95% of our students are here with us on the Hill. Yes, there are hills in the Midwest. And we think about the value add to that. So students learn in the classroom. They also have a robust learning experience in their residences. These are often opportunities to interact and live with a more diverse group of students than you ever have before. You often share a room with someone. Haven't always had that experience for all our students. And then we have so many opportunities on campus that are part of the co-curriculum, all the different student organizations, athletics, where students can fully participate because they're here with us for, on average, 4 years. And we are able to support their learning experience so they don't have to be going to college part-time. We also have tremendous number of opportunities off of campus with internships, including paid internships. We have some of the strongest global programs going. I think we're currently we're in the top 10, maybe probably the top 5 colleges with opportunities for our students to study abroad. Our students can study abroad for an entire semester at the same cost as if they were here on campus with us. And we have really rich, robust language learning experiences. So if you go to another country, Your language learning gives you a distinctive window into that. So our global community promise, as well as the opportunities here at St. Olaf, and we promise our students that we'll help them develop their narrative about how they choose the different experiences, how they all come together, and how those experiences lead into their discernment about their vocation. So let me pause and talk about how Lutherans think about vocation, because it's a little different than someone in the broader public might think about it. They might think about it as technical training to be able to weld composites, which is a great path to go. I worked in the federal government. In my portfolio, we had a really robust program to prepare students for advanced technical trades. Here we think about vocation a little differently than that. I'll get there. In some other faith-based traditions, vocation is viewed as preparation to work in the clergy or otherwise be of service in the religious tradition. We follow the thinking of Martin Luther, who democratized vocation. His position was we all have a vocation. For a student, their vocation is being a student, and it will change over time, right? They'll go through 16 different careers. So thinking about vocation matters. So what is vocation to us? It's more than career development. We think about it as living life on purpose for the common good. And we are thrilled that our students have a long track record of going out in the world and making a difference. So they have great jobs, they can support their families, and they're doing work that's deeply meaningful, and they're doing work in their communities and all the other dimensions of their life where they're caring for their neighbor, they're caring for the earth, and they're making the world a better place. So vocation is really important to us in that context, and it adds really deep meaning to the education our students receive. And we support them. We don't ask them to just go and, throw the die and figure out what their vocation will be.
No, Susan, I love that you bring up this idea of vocation. In several conversations that I've been having recently with college presidents, you often hear the focus being on careers and not vocation. Though vocation seems like a much better alignment with what higher ed, particularly liberal arts education, is meant to do. When we talk about liberal arts education is perfect for graduates to have lifelong careers. But there is still development that needs to be made for helping students transition from their vocation as a student on campus to the vocation of whatever they aim or hope to inspire to be after graduation. Do you mind talking through the balance that you have in making sure you're instilling vocation within your students so that when they leave the institution, they're out there providing good, but ultimately also achieving their desired outcome, which may be a career? How does career play into this?
Oh, Dylan, I love this question. Thank you for asking me. You're talking about the combination of the timeless skills one acquires from the liberal arts and the timely skills that one needs to get that first job and to deliver value to the employer. And I think that's one of our superpowers at St. Olaf. Long before a lot of institutions started talking about career, let alone vocation, we launched a Center for Vocation we call the Piper Center. And we have been building in a developmental way for our students from first year to fourth year, a whole set of flexible pathways to explore career opportunities, the intersection with vocation, the intersection with their academic choices. And we have intentionally leaned on a very robust alumni network to build very strong internship opportunities. We have an unusually large number of career coaches. So a student can come in, they meet with their career coach. We have peer mentors that work with our first year students that help them understand what all the assets are that are available to them on campus. And we, in addition to that, we have credentialing programs, which we're growing. So we not only provide the student with the opportunity to explore a range of careers, right? Because you don't know when you start out. I loved this summer, for example, I was down at the Mayo Clinic. We have a program in partnership with Mayo, and the students were talking about their summer research experiences where they're also discerning what they want to do. And one of the students who had been trying to decide between going for an academic PhD, more of a medical career, she said, I learned I was asking the wrong question. I should be asking who I want to be in the world. And she said, once I asked that question, I realized that this binary decision I was trying to make was not aligned with what I needed to be thinking about at all. And now I see how all the pieces fit together, right? But without the opportunity, without the guidance of faculty members, coaches, students wouldn't get that far. So when they finish St. Olaf, we are confident they are ready to launch into a career and they have those timeless skills. So as they switch careers on average 16 times or more, they can draw on all the elements of their St. Olaf education. And we provide a coach that works with alums. You could be out 5 years, you could be out 25 years, and you want to shift direction. Our coach will work with you and help you figure out how you make that change. So we don't just say goodbye, have a great life, and oh, please send dollars if you have a chance, right? We're not that type of institution.
Dylan, before you ask another question, before you ask another question, I gotta call out the brilliant marketing bit that Susan said that I would like to steal, although I'm not going to steal from her. Timeless skills and timely skills, and I just went, oh yes.
I think I borrowed that from someone else too. I've heard Jeff Salingo use it in the past, but
yeah,
he may have borrowed it from
he probably
others.
borrowed it from somebody too. But it's a great way to frame it. Dylan, go ahead. But I just thought, yes.
No, I love it as well. And I think the piece that I called out from your response there, Susan, was it's not what I want to be, but it's who I want to be that you must answer first to build that foundation so that you can ask yourself, what do I want to be? Knowing that life is really about how do you want to fulfill it and maximize it, and really how are you going to portray yourself in this world. But just to maybe keep that thread of what we're talking about with timeless and timely. I'm reading a book right now called Humility is the New Smart by Edward Hess, who is a professor of business administration at the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. And what he argues today is with the world of technology and AI, what we consider smart is no longer works because you virtually have access to all of the answers today. But we still think that smart is quantity based. And he makes an argument that most knowledge has a 3-year shelf life. And when I read that, I reflected, wow, a college experience is 4 years. So if I learned something my first year of college, by the time that I graduate, that first year may no longer be relevant because of how fast things are changing. Do you mind, Susan, talking about innovation? How are you keeping up with maybe the timely skills at St. Olaf while also balancing the timeless skills, which I think we've all very much enjoyed and loved in our time in college?
Absolutely. And it's a both and. So the value of a liberal arts education, right, are the critical thinking skills that you acquire, problem solving, information, literacy, lifelong learning. You know how to learn, and you don't feel limited by the content or the current skill set you have. I'm a biologist. If I did the work I did decades ago as an undergrad and a grad student, I would be so far behind the times, I wouldn't have any value to add to my role. We weren't sequencing whole genomes back then, but I figured out how to do that. I had the confidence to do that, and we want that for our students. So what we're doing with the both and is making sure they have the capacity, the confidence to move between careers. They have a deep understanding, so they bring value to their first stop in the arc of their career, right? We don't want people that have just generic skills, right? People used to talk about the T-shaped learning skills, that you have the deep ability and the ability to work across sectors. And I think that's one of the great things about a liberal arts education, about a St. Olaf education. We have an incredibly collaborative, team-based mindset on campus. And because of our Norwegian origins, we are definitely not a Norwegian dominant college at this point. But Norwegian Scandinavians, we tend to be very humble people. And so we're always excited to learn more. And we're willing and excited to learn from each other. So I think that culture matters. And then you add on what happens with, I mentioned the Piper Center. I'm very excited. We've just launched a new strategic plan called Solution Seekers. And, we have a North Star where we go with our education, but what drives all of it is that our students want to contribute to a bright future. And you can only be a solution thinker if you're innovative. And we're focusing on the dimension of innovation that brings in design thinking, right? The ultimate design experience is to design your own life. And we are in the early stages of a very exciting project to rethink our library and create a design studio, kind of innovation hub, and co-locate a number of centers that can support that, where they'll have adjacencies that'll create innovation just by the adjacency, the interactions. Yes, we're also going to have a little cafe. We understood from everybody was important. And I have food out for hot chocolate as well.
Yes.
So we're putting that in place. Why the library? It's literally joined our student center. It's the academic heart. It's the crossroads for faculty, staff, and students to come together. So you start with the casual conversation, and then you'll have all the resources and the tools right there to help people go from an idea to ideation to, we want to move our grants office over there, so that you don't get stymied by saying, oh, that would cost too much and give up on it. Find out, well, how could we get there? How could we pilot it? So that's a huge part of our strategic plan. Our Solution Seekers plan is to really support that innovative thinking. We have a student that graduated last year. I got to know her well because she was a student government vice president. As a sophomore, she decided that she wanted to honor her parents have Vietnamese heritage, and she started a shop in town called Tin Tea. It's wonderful. She took out a small loan and within a year paid that off. She is now running Tin Tea full time. It's one of my favorite places to go. and get a flavor of international food. And she majored in psychology and did a business and management concentration. She's putting all that to work, and she's the youngest member to serve on our Chamber of Commerce. She did that because we're a place that encourages and supports innovative thinking.
Speaking of innovative thinking, Susan, what's interesting about you is, obviously scientist, and then professor, and you're on boards of science foundations, and you're involved in this science and that science, and then college president is where you are now. And you go, okay, you had taught science, you had been a professor, you had done all these things for years and years. You were VP of a student-facing function, I believe, and then you go into the presidency. What, I don't know if it changed is the right word, but evolved. How did your thinking evolve after teaching and being involved in science all these years to then go to administration? Mindset changes. Now you're having to manage faculty in certain ways, like at least the paycheck that goes out for them, which many people don't think about. How did that transition work for you, and that you found yourself a university president?
Yeah, what's your vocation, Susan?
Big part, my
What's your vocation, since we've been talking about it?
Are you going to miss Lutheran Live this year?
I don't think so.
Exactly. So you might as well register right now at elive.elucian.com. Lutheran Live 2025, April 6th through 9th in Orlando, Florida. Do not miss it.
Higher Ed PodCon is coming. Go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe today.
So I think there is a common thread, and I'm trying to think about how you briefly capture a number of decades. But I would say even in the 11th grade, I was fascinated by the future of the genetic prospect, right? There was long enough ago, we were just starting to clone genes. There was all sorts of conversation. But at the same time, deeply interested in education as a transformative opportunity for people. I went to undergraduate and graduate school and did science, but also got certified to teach secondary school. And then I went on and began my career at a great liberal arts college, always integrating, how do we know how people learn? How can we support that? And for me, it was, how do they learn about biology? I worked in the federal government, came back, led a learning and teaching center, and started thinking, I can help faculty who are phenomenal learn about other ways they might approach teaching. I could support them. I worked on the National Academy of Sciences, a board on science education, privilege of life to build that. I chair that now. And one of the things we did was do the first comprehensive study of how students learn in science and engineering. It's shocking that it took so long. And then I had the opportunity to go to the federal government again, but to lead on all the undergraduate pieces of Congress mandated federal STEM education 5-year strategic plan. So I got to work with 14 federal agencies, get us all to work together nicely, because it's policy in the federal government. There's always a high level goal. Can we graduate 1 million more STEM grads than we are now in 5 years? Yes, we did deliver on that. We put our metrics on the White House website quarterly. And it was wonderful to see at a systems level how people come together. I was probably on 400 different university campuses. And I loved the possibility of making change at a broader scale, I also desperately missed being in a classroom. So the opportunity to go and be provost, the chief academic officer for a college, was wonderful. I loved my time there. Again, systems. And then COVID happened. And, I probably should apologetically say that motivated me with the next stage of my career, because I managed COVID for a whole institution. I got to work with all the different divisions, and it was so exciting to see how, if we all come together, we can really deliver on this promise of a high quality education. And truly, it's the honor of a lifetime to get to lead St. Olaf and support colleagues and leaders across the entire campus, whether we're working together to create a shop where students of color can get their hair done really hard in rural Minnesota, otherwise to working on further opportunities for global learning in the academic side, to work on budgets, to work on facilities. It's all of a piece. And that's the thread that's gone through my whole career. How can we create the best transformative learning opportunity for our students, prepare them to go out and make a difference in the world? And at different points in life, we all have different skill sets. So yeah, I'm the poster child for Martin Luther, right? Our vocation is constantly changing, but if we know who we are, what our core values are, it all makes sense, and it's a joy. And I just feel incredibly fortunate to be on this career arc.
Nailed it.
Susan, thank you so much for sharing your experience. Now, I know that, and I often get excited when I see glass ceilings getting broken, and being the first female president at St. Olaf, what an achievement. I'm curious from you, as you enter currently in the middle of your second year term at St. Olaf, what are some of the skills that you saw your own self develop in that first year, and how are you leveraging them or putting them into practice this year, and how are things going for you?
Dylan, that's a wonderful question, because I'm in that.
I came up with that question too, and he stole it from me. Susan.
Okay. Joe, that was a brilliant.
No, he did it on his
nicely
own.
Done.
I just want a better grade than him at the end. That's all.
Oh, I didn't know that giving out grades was part of this gig, huh? Okay.
Right.
So, I talked to many college presidents, and I am so grateful for I'm now past the 18-month mark in my presidency, and I am grateful for the support and enthusiasm the whole community has had. And I came in with one of my core beliefs that we're all better together, and that we need to listen to everyone, work together, but we also have to have a structure so that we can move that forward. Academics, right? We can have conversations for years. And, as a president leading an institution, I'm sure you're all too well aware of all of the headwinds out there in higher education. So we have to really figure out who we are, where our strengths are, and how we move an institution forward. And I've done a lot of strategic planning within an entire academic unit, within the federal government, but it was very exciting to figure out, how can we do this as a whole college? And again, with our board members, having alumni reps. And I would say what I feel really good about was in October, our board endorsed our solution seekers strategic plan. And the community, when I talk to people, they see themselves in it and they're stepping up to the plate with implementing it. So what I wanted to learn was, in this new context, how do I support this community so we unleash the brilliance and the creativity of everybody? And now we're doing more of that with donors as we move towards, we're in campaign planning stage. How do we do this with our board, who generously gives so much time and expertise and energy? How do we bring their best thinking into this? And that's what I'm most excited about, is how creative, how energized, and how committed this community is, and how do we keep enabling that? Because this is hard work, right? My friend Stephen Pruitt, he runs the Southern Regional Education Board, says, yeah, education's not rocket science. It's a lot harder. He's right? It is a lot harder, and it's tough. We're still coming out of COVID and bringing out the best in everybody. I can't imagine a team that is any better than the team we have here at St. Olaf. They're amazing.
You know, Susan, as you describe yourself and your background, there's the commonality that you've always brought people together, or you've brought teams together across these perhaps siloed divisions. The federal government, it was great to hear you talk about it, because you talk about how exciting it is, and all I could think about is how hard that must have been to bring all of those interests together, with different funding. How much of this do you really need? Well, we got to check. I've had some of that experience myself, and it's way complicated. Probably helps prepare you for the bureaucracies of college president in a way. What's the secret? Because we know the job of a college president is really leading change right now, right? We're in the digital world. How do we update things? How do we update the student experience? How do we update the curriculum? How do we update the learning models? There's always updating that's happening right now. And like Dylan said, everything's aging out really fast. To lead that change, though, we have to get over the WIFM thing, the what's in it for me, because we want to keep our jobs. We don't want to lose, somebody's going to take my job if I change something. What's been your success secrets to leading change in an effective way in very hard and difficult circumstances, especially in a federal government, for example, but how that applies to higher ed?
So I think the piece is to really listen and figure out what people care about. And probably the most dramatic learning experience for me was back in 2013 in the federal government, as the president has a budget request that goes to Congress every year. That's how the executive branch and the legislative branch come together to fund the agencies. And it was a very interesting time, because in the final executive branch budget, the Office of Management and Budget had decided for the different groupings of education, I'll just stick with undergrad ed, they would consolidate the funding across the agencies. So the day I started, I learned, and this was in the quiet phase of the budget before it completely rolled out, that the intent was to roll all undergrad funding into my shop at the National Science Foundation. And I was to go and work with everybody to make this happen. Well, that never happened. Congress, right? The appropriations funding is in different committees and all. It couldn't happen. But now you go and you meet with all these people. They're not going to be your friend, right? They're worried. And this dragged on because that was the year there was no budget. And by the fall, right, by October 1st, we had the last and one of the longest full federal government shutdowns. So it was an exciting time. I remember going to what could best be called a speed dating session with the different agencies where they were going around and talking to people that were going to be leading in different areas. And what started to work was to ask the folks about what it was in their agency they were passionate about. There are a lot of things that are very mission specific, right? Think about what the Department of Defense wants to prepare people for, what NASA does. And I was in a space that looked more domain generic. Once people started talking, and then we started having regular meetings, people began to imagine possibilities. We began to think about collaborative work. And by the time I left 4 years later, we all really appreciated each other. And fortunately, I don't know what would have happened if all the funding had come together, but we were able to really respect the contributions of each other. We put together a shared website so that all students across the country could easily find access to the undergrad research opportunities that all the different agencies provided. And most people had no way to find them. And we would put together knowledge exchanges where people that had received funding from the different agencies would come together. We did we couldn't call it speed dating, but functionally it was that. With the Department of Ed, we organized an opportunity for the presidents of minority serving community colleges to come and meet representatives from all the different agencies to find out about the opportunities that were there. And I saw the same great things. I was the workforce rep there was a White House effort on advanced manufacturing partnerships. We're now part of the last advanced manufacturing center that was funded, the most recent one, BioMade up in the cities. So you just start listening and celebrating what the other person does. You listen to what they're excited about. Does it always work? Absolutely not. But in my experience, that's the best first step in. Get people excited about things they care about. Who wants to spend time investing in someone else's vision if it's not aligned with yours?
You know, Dylan, that's a good point because you guys at RiseEd, I mean, this is what you help do. You help institutions change, right? And update and move a little bit faster when they get stuck.
That's right. And I was going to tell Susan, you make it sound so easy, the way that you word it. But I really like how you humanize process and change. And I think what I've learned working with many institutions at varying levels of change is that if you don't have alignment and if you're not listening, it's really hard to enact change because there are pockets of people that feel threatened and want to resist if they're not able to come to the table and share what they truly care about. And so I really enjoy listening to you talk about that experience at the federal government. I'm sure it's the culture that you have built at St. Olaf as well. I see the strongest institutions are ones where everyone on campus is aligned, looking forward. Very important to have a strategic mission where everyone can come together and play a part in that. Do you have any guidance for leaders at schools that maybe have a challenge with this resistance to change from maybe their faculty, their staff, or others on their institution?
Well, first of all, it's perfectly understandable that people do. And I think we need to think about what motivates faculty, right? In many fields, they could be working out in the public sector at a much higher salary than in higher ed. So people are in higher ed because they're very mission-centric. They're passionate about the work they do. And I would own it for myself, right? Your identity and your career blur in ways that they may not in other sectors. So when you suggest change, it's not just that, oh, I don't want to work harder at something now. It gets to the core of who you are, and then whether or not who you are is valued, right? Are you enough? I think that's really, really important. I've learned a lot from the work I've done over the past 6 years with my colleague Ann Austin at Michigan State. We've had a very generous grant to study, can networks of higher ed organization, how do they work to accelerate change? And that was a big change that we made in the National Science Foundation. Instead of funding small projects, and certainly there's still some of that, but what if we can get organizations to come together? And there's a couple elements to that. And I've also seen this happen. I'm a senior fellow for the American Association of Universities, an entirely different scope and scale, and I've done brilliant things in that context too, which is a very different culture and real important challenges, great success. You're never a prophet in your own land. So you can be this really creative, innovative faculty member, and at other institutions, people will be really excited about what you found, what you want to offer. And at your home institution, you're still, you're the colleague down the hall. So what we've seen with these networks, and we've studied 6 closely, some are similar types of institutions in higher ed. Some cut all the sectors from 2-year to regional to liberal arts to R1s, and some are departmentally focused. I think there's 2 things. One, on the academic side, change really happens at the departmental level, and I'll use one example to tie these all together. At the departmental level, what if you can use other colleges, institutions to come together and help you change the currency of the realm? So there's an NSF-funded project called TVAL, Teaching Evaluations, that gets departments to look at this whole rubric of ways you can assess teaching effectiveness, because many institutions just use that chart one fills out right after class. And, in the heat of the moment, we're not always our most objective. But what happens with peer observations? What happens with the voice of the faculty member? What happens with artifacts? Can you do that? Well, if you start to see other departments do it, it catches on and more people pick it up. So the power of partnerships, I think, says it all. And working with other institutions to achieve common goals accelerates change.
Now, Susan, we're coming up to time here, and I've got 2 final questions for you. And I had a threat on my life by your public relations director, Kat Dodge. No, she didn't really threaten me, but she did say
very kind.
She did say that I have to keep you to your schedule, and she is very caring of you and making sure you get to where you're going on time. The first question, and importantly, is I need a grade for Dylan, 1 to 100, on how he performed on his first podcast co-hosting opportunity here.
Well, I thought he would have been in like the intro level class for podcasting, but based on his questions, I think he's a junior or senior level status already. Wow. Really good questions that reflect deep insight and awareness of higher ed.
It's fuzzy math.
You'll take it. You'll take it, Dylan. Most importantly, Susan, in the last couple of minutes we have with you, what else do you want to say about the college, and what do you see for the future of higher education? Lucian Live is taking place April 6th through 9th, 2025 in Orlando, Florida.
You just made the list.
Get ready for an unforgettable experience at Lutheran Live 2025. Join visionary leaders from institutions worldwide as we dive into groundbreaking ideas, cutting-edge solutions, and transformative best practices that will ignite your passion for innovation. This is your chance to connect, collaborate, and propel your institution into the future. Do not miss out.
Let's go.
Did you buy your tickets yet? Higher Education's first podcast conference is coming July 12th. Go to higheredpodcon.com, higheredpodcon.com. Get your tickets. Do you want to get invites to special events? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes episodes, and original content? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Well, you can go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
So I believe that at times where it gets very challenging to move forward in higher education, I think places like St. Olaf keep that bright light in the beacon burning, and we are able to persist as a place where we support all our students. We just move forward with an Indigenous Affordability Act because we live on land that was once inhabited by the Wapakute of the Dakota Band. So place matters. At the end of the day, we are preparing students for life. So career is an important part of that. We prepare students for the civic responsibilities they will take on in the world. And I truly believe we are a place, and I am optimistic there are many others in higher ed that every day demonstrate the value of higher education as a public good. And yes, I think we need to speak more loudly about it being an individual good, but it's a public good, and leaders of the future, innovation in the future, all depend on the high quality education we can provide collectively across higher ed. And I am so proud we are sending OLIs out into the world because the future is bright when you look at your students.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Another amazing episode of the EdUp Experience podcast. He's Dylan Fogarty. He's a VP at Rise Education. Dylan, thank you for being here to interview our amazing guest. Let's get her out. Dr. Susan Rundell, singer, president at St. Olaf College. What a pleasure this has been. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.